Hot dog. That's the way it works. Welcome back to Goodbye Photo, the YouTube channel where I explore how many brain cells it takes to make photographs. Spoiler alert, it's not a lot. Quick note, if you entered the contest from the last video to win the camera, good job. I'm gonna keep it going, and at the end of May, I'll announce a winner. So it's still going. So if you haven't, go back and check that video out, and you can enter to win a free camera. Recently, I picked up this little guy. And no, this is not a handcuff for a child. This is a lens adapter. You see, I shoot Nikon for film currently, Nikon F3, and I shoot on a Sony system for all my digital. This little guy allows me to put my lenses for my film onto my Sony digital body, which is great for numerous reasons. One being I don't need to have a trust fund to afford multiple of the same lens for different systems. But my main reason for picking this up, I wanted to use my digital camera to practice shooting film.
We're talking about practice.
Yes, practice. Now, you may be sitting there asking yourself, why am I even watching this idiot? Or you may be asking, what do you mean practice shooting film with a digital camera? Well, would you shut up for a minute and let me explain? See, current film prices are at an all-time high, and my parents made bad life decisions. One, by keeping me around. Two, by not becoming billionaires and leaving me with a trust fund like some other YouTube photographers. Not gonna name names, but so instead of holding up my local film dealer with a super soaker, I opted to pick up a child's bracelet so that I could practice zone focusing with my manual lens on my digital body without spending an arm and a leg on film. Now, if you don't know what zone focusing is, let's talk about it. Zone focusing is when you are using a manual lens, you set your aperture anywhere between usually f5.6 to f11, could be anything really. And then you set your focus to a locked distance. Then you're able to freely move, keep your camera settings all the same, and wait for your subject to either come into that range or for you to move toward the subject and put them in that range, ensuring that whatever the subject is, as long as it's in that range, should be in focus. This technique is huge when it comes to street photography, especially, where you don't have the time or conditions to critically focus on a specific moving target. The difficult part of this is being able to judge the distance from your camera to a subject to ensure that they are within your range. This is where practice comes in.
Not a game, not a game, not a game. We're talking about practice.
Knowing when your subject is entering that predetermined range, usually, I set my focus to 3 meters. That's about 9 feet. Knowing when they're about 9 feet away from you only comes with repetition, practice. Misjudging this results in out of focus, fuzzy, missed shots, which in street photography, especially shooting on film, it'll ruin you. It'll literally ruin you. Depression, you're walking into the ocean, you're looking at what's the highest bridge around, and you're going bankrupt. So I have the lens, I have the camera, I have the adapter. Now I just needed a subject. Luckily, in the small town that I'm staying in the middle of not much, every year the locals gather around to eat pancakes, throw a carnival, and worship the syrup gods. That's something that they call the Maple Syrup Festival. So I packed my camera, my insulin shots, and headed down to get my feet sticky and take some photos. One way to practice zone focusing is to set your lens parameters, plant your feet, and wait for a subject to move into your focus area, or what a lot of photographers refer to as fishing, because you're kind of just standing as if you're standing on a dock or the bank, and you're just casting out. You're just hoping that something comes to you. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of doing things this way. I get bored. I want to keep moving. I lose focus. Looking at what people are eating, it's not my normal way of doing things. So in my case, I tend to move toward a subject, move toward a scene. So instead of casting my net and waiting for them to come to it, I'm trying to throw my net at something. So let's say my aperture is set at f8, which is, in most lenses, very sharp. That's kind of your sweet spot in a lot of lenses. So my aperture is at f8, then I would set my focus to, let's say 2 meters. 2 meters, about 6 feet. With this lens, that means that everything within about 1.5 meters to 3 meters is actually gonna be in focus. The sweet spot is probably right there at the 2 meter mark, but you have leeway because you're set at f8 or 5 to 10 feet. That's how big your net is. If you think about it, your aperture is just giving you a little more of a range as you go up. That's the way it works. f5.6, f8, f11, f22. That's kind of how it works. So as I move through a crowd, as long as anything's within 5 to 10 feet, it should be in focus. Anything within 5 to 10 feet of me, I should be able to make a decent photograph without even having to look through the viewfinder or critical focus. Now, I'm not smart, so I did make some mistakes while out practicing this. I blame the sugar high and the hot dog sweats, honestly. At some points, I would change my aperture, change the focus, usually to mess with some different shutter speeds or different lighting scenarios, and then I would forget to reset all my settings before moving on to the next scene. I was excited. There was syrup everywhere. My hands were sticky, resulting in me cursing at my computer later that night while editing photos and choking down my 18th syrup-covered hot dog of the day. But again, this was the point. This was all practice, warm-up for the big game. Although I love some of these photos that I took, they're all kind of meaningless. They're not, in the grand scheme of things, they're not going in the portfolio. I'm not trying to sell them. It was all practice. The big picture is that thanks to this adapter, I'm able to get comfortable with a manual lens that I use all the time without the cost of 30 rolls of ruined film, without misfocusing on something that cost me the price of a cup of coffee and a hot dog every time I press the shutter. This would make a good hot dog holder as well. Hot dog. The other benefit of the lens adapter, it makes your lens real big. You know what they say about a photographer with a big lens? It's probably full of dust. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, join the Patreon, invite your mom to my house, read my Substack, make her cook us dinner. You can fall asleep in the same sleeping bag. Goodbye.